And welcome back to another episode of Think Like a Leader. Today we have our guest, Kevin Wayne Johnson. Kevin, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you so much for the wonderful invitation. I'm grateful to be here and looking forward to a good show.
I am too. I am using this I'm going to be honest. I've always say my audience is me 5 years ago. So I will be asking a lot of questions that I was curious about, but also I dug into some of the comments and I asked a couple colleagues of mine of like, what kind of questions would you want to ask an experienced CEO and experienced leadership coach? So I also have some questions from them as well. So I'm excited to jump into it. The first one though is as a young leader myself, I'm curious as to what's one simple daily ritual from your routine that you would say is a credit in keeping, as you would say, your servant's heart strong after the 34 years that you've been in these high stake roles.
The first word that comes to mind is application. And what I mean by that is just doing, being led by your heart and doing. Because what happens is when you take that step forward and you do it and you get it done, gives you more confidence, it gives you more boldness, it heightens your faith, and you'll be much more prepared to now move into that next area of responsibility. So that's what I mean when I say application. Application has everything to do with doing what's on your heart. And from the doing, you'll find that the accomplishments will build your faith, it will build your confidence, and you'll be even more prepped to move forward into the next area. So that's the one word that comes to mind.
I love that. What do you say to the person that is struggling with finding out what's on their heart? Because I know I've had a point in my life where I was confused on what I even wanted to do or my purpose. So what do you say to that person that's like, well, I don't know. I don't know what's on my heart.
Yeah, that's actually a good one. So here's what I recommend, and I know it's not always easy, but I tell people growth comes from stepping outside of your sandbox, getting outside of what's comfortable to you. You and I have to get comfortable at some point, and you determine that level of comfortability with being in the company with like minded people. What do I mean by like minded people? People that share your goals, dreams, and aspirations, and they're trying to get there as well. Surround yourself with a small group of individuals who have that same pressing issue on their mind. And what happens is you all develop a bond, you create your network, you establish new relationships, and now you have a shoulder to lean on where you can ask questions and they can ask questions of you. Now, the level of comfortability will vary from person to person. Everybody's not comfortable being in situations where they're around other people. I get it. I used to be that way as well. But in this season of my life, and when I look back over my life, I've always found a way to get comfortable with being in the company of people who are like minded. They help me, I help them. And then before you know it, you're well on your way to achieving those goals, dreams, and aspirations.
So I'm
Mhm.
going to be prying and I'm going to be asking. So you've authored 23 books on a topic that I'm interested in, which is servant leadership. You've earned global awards, of cultivating leaders, and you've done a lot of great work. What do you believe it takes to think like an effective leader, specifically in this next generation when guiding the next generation?
Well, in terms of how we think, I believe it has everything to do with you and I finding ways to help and serve and support others. Because when it's all said and done, this entire conversation on leadership, leadership with a servant's heart, has everything to do with recognizing and acknowledging that people need the gift or the gifts that you have to help them to get from A to B. And if we can spend a little bit more time focused on that, helping others, not only does it bring us true fulfillment, but it's also a building block in terms of what we learn about what leadership is. And so, if we can take a little bit more focus off of self and put more focus on how can we help others, you're going to find that's going to be a difference maker. And that's one of the key areas that I emphasize, whether you're an aspiring leader or a seasoned leader or somewhere in between on the spectrum. That's the difference maker, taking focus off of self and putting it on seeing how we can help and support and being an advocate for others.
I love that because it's the I think it's the issue or the problem most people just in general. I mean, we're going just in general. They they struggle with leaving their own like, well, what can I get out of it
Hmm.
frame
Hmm.
because we grow up in a world in a school system and whatever the case may be where it is about like what grade did you get? Well, how did you do? Well, what are you and it's everything about like the self. So that shift, I'm sure is it's hard to to shift into this feeling of serving. And and I want to give you a hypothetical real quick. So say I am a young leader, young anybody, to be honest, right? And I'm just feeling stuck in self-doubt, which most of our audience is, right? Could you walk me through the process or your first step, at least, in the coaching process on how you would reframe that individual from going to this woe is me kind of frame to seeing
Hmm.
everything as more of a growth opportunity?
Yeah. So I would always say, and I'll share this with your listening audience, um, consider it a natural thing. It's a normal phenomenon that we feel stuck. You're not on an island all by yourself. There's nothing wrong with you. It's part of our growing pains. It's like, wow, do I go east or west? Do I go north or south? I'm stuck. I'm not quite sure what to do at this fork in the road. So you're not alone. It's not unusual, and there's nothing wrong with you. Look at it now as an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper and to become a bit more laser focused on what the desired outcome is. So when it's all said and done, what are we looking to achieve? What are we looking to get done? What is the desired outcome? And then you can start to move toward that. You start to feel a little bit less stuck or unstuck because you now have identified and defined what the desired outcome is. Let me give you a quick example. It's not a coincidence that I have been a published writer, both a principal author and a contributing author to soon 24 books, actually 25 before the end of this year, 2025, because I just got picked up for another book that I'm going to be a part of with a group of men, and then we're going to go to the Dominican Republic next year and kind of sell it and share it. It's not a coincidence that over these past couple of decades that I have put out that much published work. Why? Because my desired outcome is to reach people who have a desire, number one, to increase the literacy rate across America, but equally important, to educate themselves and to capture some additional knowledge that they didn't have. So whether the topic is book marketing, whether it's finance, whether it's blended families, whether it's faith, whether it's leadership, I've written about all of those different areas in terms of giving people hope and education and heightening their level of awareness. The desired outcome is just to reach people to help to educate them and increase their knowledge. And so it helped me to get unstuck by using books, using the literary arts as a means to reach people. And so that's going to help us to get unstuck by defining what is that desired outcome? What is it that we're looking to achieve? Now we can put the stake in the ground and start working toward that. But being stuck is not unusual. It doesn't make you strange. It happens to us all. We've all been there. But I always recommend that if you can define that desired outcome, it's going to help you to get unstuck.
Yeah, when I think about that, I want to kind of ask, just personally, with you, when you created that goal, when you had that vision of what you wanted to do, your desired outcome, was it as vague? It sounds like, was it vague, like I just want to reach people, or was it a specific number that you put on it, or how did you come to terms with the desired outcome? Because I find a lot of the audience, and specifically I talk about myself 5 years ago, I struggled with even figuring out what I even wanted as the desired outcome. Is it
Mhm.
a thing, or is it something I want to become? I struggle with that. So what would you say to me in that situation, if I'm like, how do I find my desired outcome?
Yeah. So definitely in the very beginning, originally, initially, it was very vague, right? It was almost like pulling out of the sky. Over time, it develops and it cultivates and it becomes more specific and concise. But it kind of goes back to your first question, the application piece. We have to take that first step and then that second step. And then we kind of find out, oh, it's not so bad. And through the application, as we get a little bit closer and closer to defining that desired outcome, it becomes much more crystal clear. And we can be much more efficient and much more effective. So it's not unusual that it starts out very vague. And then over time, through application, it will become much more defined and more specific as we can walk forward. It wasn't until recently, and when I say recently, the last couple of years, that I was able to now pinpoint 1 million people. I want to be able to reach 1 million people who have a desire to be in a leadership role across the globe. But I just recently came up with the million. Well, Kevin, how did you come up with 1 million? Well, I take a look at my target audience and I look at some of the key strategic regions around the globe, Africa, of course, the UK, the Caribbean islands, here in North America, the United States, and Canada. And then I'm looking at parts of Europe, not all of Europe, but parts of Europe and parts of China, not the entire nation, specifically Beijing, Hong Kong, and a couple of other cities. And I left places like Antarctica, Iceland, Greenland, and Russia. I just left them off the chart. New Zealand as well. I did include Australia. As big as Australia is, there's very few inhabitants based upon the land population. That's how I came up with the million, by just getting much more granular and much more specific. So again, just like being stuck, it's not unusual. There's nothing wrong with you. When you move into this next phase and it's like, well, it's kind of vague what I want to do, where I want to go. Is it a thing? Is it something much more tangible? And that's okay. But over time, as you start to work it through and use the application that I talked about earlier, it becomes much more crystal clear. So when it's all said and done, and this entire discussion that we're having, you're going to hear me consistently say, we have to do something. You have to do something. It's more than just having a goal, and it's more than just having a dream. It's more than just wanting to be a leader, but we have to take a step forward so we can prepare ourselves and equip ourselves to be exactly what's in our heart and what's in our mind. So that's my response to it. But I do want to reiterate one more time: it is not unusual that the desired outcome might be vague in the beginning, and it is not unusual to feel stuck. Over time, all of that will start to relieve itself, but don't give up and don't stop and don't abandon just because you might feel stuck or because your desired outcome may be vague. Don't let that stop you. Keep moving forward.
Powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful because it speaks to just the consistent action. And I say this on the pod a lot, and I got it from I don't know where I got it from, but he said raw action beats no action 10 days out of the 10 days out of 10, 10 times out of 10, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I love that. And that's, what sparked me actually starting the podcast, because I was in my planning phase, right? For like, everyone gets kind of stuck in their planning phase for too long, where
Mhm.
you're doing things, you're doubting it, you're doing it, and it's like, no, I don't think I should do that. And I heard this quote. It was like, raw action beats no action. And the story that he tells, and I've told it on the pod, is like the rain dance story. There's a farmer out there, and they want rain for his crops, and he looks at his friend, and his friend's like, man, we're not getting any rain. It's been a drought. And his friend looked at him and said, do the rain dance. And he was like, well, why would I do the rain dance? It's not going to rain. And it's like, well, if you don't do the rain dance, it's for sure not going to. But if you do the rain dance, there's a chance
That's right.
that it might rain, right? And it's a silly story, but it's about just doing.
Mhm.
You don't know if it's going to be great or bad. You just simply have to do and then figure it out along the way. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's a huge takeaway of just applying application. I love that. Um,
Absolutely.
but Kevin, so you've I know your goal right now is you want to impact, you said 1,000 or million leaders, excuse me, but I know, and we spoke earlier about, you really wanted to impact the younger generation, right? So I love giving scenarios. So I'm a Gen Z leader, right? I'm a millennial, so I'll just disclaimer. But now we have a Gen Z leader, right? And say they're wanting to do what you've done. They want to author their own impact, maybe like your 23 books, right? I want to know, from that perspective, what's the daily writing or like the reflection practices that you had to do to build the discipline, because schedules are crazy today. Like,
Mhm.
everyone's typically busy with stuff. So how did you find that time and to create those disciplines to write 23 going on 25 books? Because that's amazing.
Well, I love how you structured the question, because embedded in your question, you asked, how do you find the time? You don't. You make the time. See, we all have 24/7, 365, except for leap year, 366. And everybody finds the time to do what they want to do. We do. We find the time to do the things we want to do. And so when you gravitate towards something you really love and you're really passionate about it, you'll always find time for it, right? I'm a family man. I always find time for my family. I'm an introvert. People don't know that until I say it, because I get so much energy being around people. But when I'm not around people, I love my me time. And that's when I'm thinking. That's when I'm reflecting. That's when the mirror is up and I'm doing a self assessment. And that's where I get a lot of thought and a lot of ideas. And as those thoughts and ideas come, I go ahead and capture them and I write them down as it relates to an article, a blog, or even a book. Some of the content goes into a book. So it's not about trying to find the time. It's more about making the time. That means you and I are in the driver's seat. You and I are in control, and don't get so caught up in having a pattern where you feel like you have to do something between 7 and 8 a.m. Because on any given day, between 7 and 8 a.m., something else might come up. And so, as you find time to get things done and you make the time to get things done, that's when things happen. And so the example that you gave around writing books, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's tedious. There's a lot of research and study, because I'm a nonfiction writer. I do a lot of analysis, and I review a lot of statistics, and that information goes into the books. But over time, you just kind of learn that if you set aside 5, 6, 7 hours a week, that's all. 5, 6, 7 hours a week. I mean, you get 24 hours in a day. I'm just talking about 5, 6, seven
Yeah.
hours a week consistently. then you'll find that over a 6-month period, you have close to 100 hours, if not more, that you have dedicated toward that particular project, whatever it might be. In this case, it's just writing books. So it's not as challenging or as difficult as it looks if you take the time, again, application, follow your heart and pursue your dreams, goals, and aspirations. It's all about doing. That's the key to getting it done. Just doing it and being consistent. But it doesn't have to be 3 o'clock every day. Doesn't have to be 8 o'clock in the morning every day. Some days you don't do anything, right? And that's
Yeah.
the key. Now, it's about balance as well. Don't work yourself so much that you get a headache. You want to stay balanced. You want to have some good recreation. You want to eat well. You want to stay hydrated. I talk a lot about health as well because I was a pre-med major in college. So,
Oh, really?
but yeah, I was. But as a freshman, I sat in that 300 seat auditorium as a freshman for my chemistry one-on-one class, and
That
I said,
yep.
this not gonna work. So this is not going to work. But I started out as a pre-med major because I do have an interest in that topic and helping people to understand the importance of our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. I talk about that a lot, but not as a medical doctor, just as Kevin. So hopefully that helps. That's how you get it done. Again, you don't find time, you make time.
I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
And it kind of reminds me of like the thing they call time blocking, right? Where you sit down and you kind of almost like schedule. And like you said, I agree with that sense where it's like just know that you're going to do it today. Don't necessarily plan an exact time to do the thing because life happens to everyone, you know.
Mhm.
And there may be a day where you planned on doing it and you couldn't do it. That's okay, right? But you still have the rest of the week to make up for it, to do the thing that you've set out and made time to do. So I think that's super powerful. And the the chemistry story is hilarious because I have a very similar one where I was a chemistry major for whatever weird odd reason. I think I wanted to get into pharmacist. I wanted to be a pharmacist. I wanted to really be behind the counter, and I got to organic chemistry. So chemistry 101 was okay, but when I got to organic chemistry, I can tell you I sat and I looked at that chalkboard and I could believe the the mechanisms behind the things that we like. It was so, and they were talking about basic stuff. I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. I'm over this. I'm completely over it, man.
You knew that wasn't
But
going to be a desired outcome.
I knew right then and there. I said, no, sir. I actually, me and one of my friends at the time, we were sitting in the class, and she looked at me and she's like, "Do you get any of this?" And I looked her straight in the eye and was like, I'm dropping this class tomorrow. Changing my major next week. I'm not, there's zero chance that I'm going to go through with this. Um, man, but I want to touch gears on something you just talked about where you talked about balance, right? Because I find that to be something that I'm personally working on, right? Finding the balance in the work that I do, not only my day job, but my podcast, working my way and building this business. The I'm in school. I'm a master's student, right? So I'm actively studying, doing the group projects. I'm actually in my research methods practicum course right now, right? So very, very engaged. I'm a husband. I'm a father, and I'm also just a man, right? So I want to get your thoughts on how one does balance all of these things, because there could be people doing 9 more things than I've just said that I'm doing, and I feel like I'm running around sometime like a chicken with my head cut off, you know? So talk us through how to find that balance, or how you did it, in your years of being a leader and a professional.
Well, there's really no one answer that would really provide a good response to your question. But I will say this: Being balanced, staying balanced, being able to maintain and sustain a balance means that you and I have to prioritize, because if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. In other words, stuff just won't get done. I have to prioritize my relationship with my Heavenly Father. I have to prioritize my family. I have to prioritize my health. And I have to prioritize my ability to generate revenue to take care of those that I'm entrusted to take care of. And I have to take time to really study my craft and be best in class at it. That means everything else, as important as they are, just aren't considered a priority. And that's how you stay balanced. That's how you get it done. That's how you get your proper rest. That's how you eat well. That's how you find time for exercise, because all of that is very, very important. I tell everybody all the time, there's a difference between living to eat and eating to live. There's a
Yeah.
difference. And we have to learn that eating to live is much more important than living to eat. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm no different than anybody else that loves the culinary, right? And I'm a buffet guy. So Fogo de Chao and Golden Corral are two of my favorites, right? But you have to stay balanced. You can't go there too frequently, if you would, right? You have to keep a nice balance. So if you prioritize, again, what you're doing is you're saying, of all of the important things in my life that I really do need to pay a close attention to, there are about 4 or 5 things that really, really need my priority. Because if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. It won't get done. And so that's how I handle it. And that's how I look at it. And even at this season in life, I'm still the same way. Exercise is right up there. My relationship with my Heavenly Father is right up there. All of my sons are grown now. But guess what? I'm doing more mentoring. I've raised them, I've taught them, I've given them instruction. I was a role model, but now I'm more of a instructor and I'm more of a mentor in this season of their lives. So fatherhood hasn't left, but the priority is kind of shift based upon where they are in their lives. So that's how I look at it. That's the advice and the guidance that I give to all of the leaders coming up behind me. Because if you try to do 15 things every day, this is not going to happen. You got to say, out of these 15, 5 are the priority that I have to get done today. And that's how you look at it.
Yeah. I love to prioritize. I feel like if you get anything from this episode, audience, it's prioritize the things that really matter to you. But it takes time. I think it takes time to sit down and really figure out what those things are.
Hmm.
It's because it's if you're just kind of moving around in life, life moves fast, and you can
Hmm.
allow other things to dictate how you're thinking. So taking the real time to do that, and taking the real time that you need, is very, very important. Very, very important.
Absolutely. No doubt.
Um, I want to jump into a question that I think is going to be really important for our audience, and it's about habits. Habits. I think habits are very, very vital for anyone to be successful in anything. So, what are the habits that you would say that you keep, or you would coach someone to have? Just maybe 1 or 2 habits that you think are the most important in leadership and in life.
Yeah, yeah, great. And I'm glad you equate leadership with life and life with leadership. I'll start by answering the question. In order for anything to become a habit, we have to practice it. If you do something consistently and repetitively for a certain number of times, it becomes a habit. You don't necessarily have to think about it. It's like a natural thing. And I would start out by saying, as it relates to habits, Number one would be really just having a positive outlook. What do you mean by that, Kevin? Well, you mentioned earlier about being able to take any given situation and turn it into a positive. I use the vernacular that whenever anybody um, throws lemons at you, or if you have a situation where it's just lemons all over the place, then take those lemons and make some lemonade and keep moving forward. I use that all the time. And that's what I mean by positive outlook. Listen, I've been actively engaged in ministry for 23 years. I worked for the federal government for 34 years. I have one brother, no sisters. He was born with a mental disability when I was 3.5. I had to help raise him. I have three sons. The youngest son is autistic. Here we go again. I have to live that same life over again. I lived it with my brother. Now I have to live it with my son. You have to take whatever lemons are given to you and just make lemonade and have a positive outlook. How can we make this situation favorable for everybody that's involved? Right. And so that's how I look at leadership, because the most challenging aspect of leadership are the people that you're leading. That's your biggest headache. That's your biggest challenge. That's your biggest obstacle. Why? Because they bring different experiences, different upbringing, different backgrounds, different personalities, different ways of communicating. All of these different complexities go with being a leader. But guess what? The same thing with life. In life, it's the same thing. The people that you meet, some will be on your side and some will have a personal agenda and not tell you and looking to get you. In life, half the people are going to like you and half the people aren't. And the people that don't like you don't even know why they don't like you. They just decided they don't like you. So you can't spend a lot of time dealing with that type of stuff. You just have to have a positive outlook. The other one that I recommend in terms of a habit is, even though every one of us are imperfect, no one's perfect. That means we're not going to always solve problems right, and we're not going to always make the best decisions, but we can always strive to be the best that we can be. And I tell people all the time, a habit that we can develop is to show up and be your best self, whoever that is. It's we're not looking for perfection, but we're looking for you to just kind of show up and be the best that you can be. And that has everything to do with character, integrity, being a person of ethics. That's really what it's all about. And if you can develop those two habits, just having a positive outlook, uh, making lemonade out of lemons, and then number two, just showing up to be your best self, then I believe you are well on your way to being a great leader and also living a phenomenal life. I firmly believe that.
That's so good. That's so good. It echoes a lot of the thought leaders that I've been listening to, like your Earl Nightingales, Jim Rohns, Brian Tracy's.
Hmm.
Like they say literally the same thing where, you use the lemon lemonade, I use glass half full
Hmm.
versus half empty,
Yep.
where I can look at and see a situation. And I'll give you an example this morning. my my dog this morning, she peed on something she wasn't supposed to piss on, right? And
Right.
I go out there and I could have been mad, right? I could have been really, really upset. But you know what I said? I was like, well, this forces me now to clean that thing that I've probably been waiting to clean for long time, right? I now get to clean the thing that I've needed to clean for a minute, and my dog got to relieve herself, whatever the case may be. But like now I got to do the thing that I've been needing to do. So it ended up being something that needed to be done anyway. Funny enough, right? It
Mm.
turned into something positive for me. And it was my dog pissing on the couch. You know what I mean? Like it's super simple, but it's like, oh, I needed to clean the couch. I needed to make sure it was, you know what I mean? So it ends up
Yeah.
working out. So I love that. That's so good.
Good.
But I'm gonna end this here. We're getting towards the end of our chat, and I want to just kind of throw some quick fires at you, just as we close, just to see what we can give the audience here. And the first question I have is, what's one emerging challenge that you're seeing right now of the next generation of leaders that you'd warn the audience about now? And then do you have a mindset to conquer it?
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind for that question is the rapid advancement of technology. And you and I have to decide whether or not we're going to use that technology for good or if we're going to use it for evil. Because I've been the recipient of both. I mean, very recently, I got duped into um, giving access to a group to one of my Facebook accounts, and they stole my account. But it was my fault. I got duped. I'm normally pretty astute at that, but they got me and they're gone. And I had a 250,000 followers. I don't think as much. I don't think as much I can do. Everybody says, "Well, contact Facebook." Yeah, right. They got over 1 billion users. But at the same time, technology can be really, really favorable. So, I use LinkedIn a lot in terms of my social media, and the number of contacts and contracts and other opportunities that have come forth is just by using that technology. So I would ask everybody to be very mindful and be very attentive and be very astute because technology is advancing very, very quickly. We didn't even get into a discussion about artificial intelligence. That's the next
Yeah, no, we
wave.
didn't.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
next wave. So just be astute, be aware, and be on your guard, but use it for good and not for evil.
love that. Love that. Yeah, our next conversation. So, our interview did get cut short today with Mr. Kevin Wayne Johnson. There was a connectivity issue, but I wanted to finish off the episode kind of talking about what we've learned from today's just conversation, and something that I know I've said plenty of times on the pod is raw action beats no action. Well, he actually says the word application. It's application. Once you find something and you just do it, you have to apply. You have to apply yourself. He said one of the things that we should do in order to find ourselves and find our purpose is to step out of the sandbox, is what he said. And I thought that was so cool because he talks of getting comfortable with being in the uncomfortable, right? I find that to be something that is difficult at first if you're not used to doing it, but it goes back to something else you said, which was practice. It's practice. To make something a habit, you must practice it first. And it goes into doing the same thing over and over again. You have to. That's the only way you'll get better at it, right? The same way you learned how to walk. You kept practicing as a baby, and then eventually you learned how to walk. Same thing with riding a bike. You kept practicing, and then now being able to ride a bike is now a habit. You now know the habits it takes to ride a bike, the actions it takes. So I I got so much from this, and I think what I want to share, and I'm gonna have all his links in the show notes in the description. I think that there's gonna be so much value, and I want you guys to take up his leadership series. He has a series called Leadership with a Servant Heart. This guy's written over 23, going on 25 books. The guy knows what he's talking about. And I urge you, if you have time, to get a copy of one of them. I know I'm about to, and buy one and just read. I think it's going to be very important for us to continue to learn and do the things that we're hearing and applying what we hear on these episodes. I'm not here to waste your time. What I'm here to do is hopefully give you some hope, some insights, something actionable that you can take away today at the end of the episode and do it. That's my overall goal. He talks about impacting over 1 million people. I don't have a number attached to what I'm trying to do, but I know that there's a large subset of individual that I believe can benefit from leaders like Mr. Kevin Wayne Johnson. And the other guests that we have on the platform. So don't just listen, apply, right? Raw action beats no action, guys. I tell you this every time. Raw action beats no action. But that's going to be the end of today's episode. You guys know the spiel. I don't have it, but like, click, subscribe, review, leave a comment. I want to know if I'm doing good, want to know if we're doing bad, and we'll adjust. And I also want to know, for some of these guests, I would love to know some questions that you may have as an aspiring leader, as someone that's growing into themselves. What questions do you have for some of our guests? I would love to take them. I'll have a link in my show notes, so that way you can, excuse me, add questions to it, right? It'll be a little questionnaire, and you can just add questions, and I'll see it, and then I'll see if I ask it in one of the episodes. And if I do, I'll actually put your name on it, right? I'll say this question was by this person here, and I'll ask the question to one of our guests, and we'll go from there. I'll give you a quick shout out. So definitely take a look at the link and add your question. I'd love to ask you. I'd love to know the answers to them as well. So thank you for joining me again for another episode of Think Like a Leader. Peace.